What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Lane's Man Cave. In today's video, I will be giving out my AFC predictions. Let's go. Coming in last place in the AFC, I got the Broncos going 2-15. The Broncos will be turning to rookie quarterback Bo Nix after Russell Wilson's unsuccessful stint. I'm not the biggest fan of Nix, but moving on from Russ was the right move, as he was never taking the team anywhere. Running back Javonte Williams has not looked the same since his knee injuries. Courtland Sutton is not exactly who you want as your wide receiver one, but Marvin Mims and rookie Troy Franklin could emerge as a good wide receiver 2 and free respectively. The O-line led by Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, and Quinn Miners should be okay, but the grass is not that greener on the defensive side of the ball, with Vance Joseph returning at DC and losing all-pro safety Justin Simmons. They do have some new faces in the front seven, like John Franklin Myers and Cody Barton, and of course they still have Patrick Surtain. But this year, I'm expecting the Broncos to be the worst team in football. In 15th, I got the Patriots going 2-15. The Patriots are entering the first year of the post-Bill Belichick era, and I'm not a believer in first-year head coach Gerard Mayo, as the Belichick coaching tree does not have a good track record, and while he was the player-friendly option, he was far from the best candidate. Someone I do believe in is rookie quarterback Drake May. He has an excellent arm and is overlooked as a runner, but we don't even know when he'll see the field, and his situation is far from good. Ramondre Stevenson, a good running back, but he is not moving the needle for this offense. The receiving core is arguably the NFL's worst, with Kendrick Bourne and Demario Douglas projected to be the top wideouts, and the O-line, outside of Michael Onwenu, is not good at all, especially on the left side. David Andrews was solid at center, and they could get something out of City Sow, but they both have ways to go. Defensively, they traded their best defender and their best player, Matt Judon, and defensive tackle Christian Barmore is out indefinitely due to blood clots. Cornerback Christian Gonzalez looked like a rising star before his injury, and this unit does have other solid young guys, like Kyle Duggar, Giovanni Tavai, and Josh Uche, but they are far from a complete unit, and this offense is so bad that it won't even matter. In 14th, I got the Titans going 5-12. The Titans had a weird offseason, firing head coach Mike Vrabel after 5 years and losing franchise cornerstone Derrick Henry. They did bring in Brian Callahan, who is younger and more offensive-minded than Vrabel, but is a downgrade until proven otherwise. They also signed Tony Pollard as Henry's replacement, but at this point, I believe Tajay Spears is the better running back on this team. Second-year quarterback Will Levis had his moments, but is incredibly raw, and when you're one of the older rookies, that's not a good thing. But the Titans tried their best to surround him with as much talent as possible. The O-line was the worst in football last year, and I don't think it'll be that great this year, but they did bring in Lloyd Cushenberry and J.C. Latham. They brought in Tyler Boyd to the receiving room, who is reuniting with Callahan, as well as Calvin Ridley. On defense, they still have Jeffrey Simmons on the D-line, and drafted Tavondre Sweat, who has the potential to be one of the best nose tackles in the league. Harold Landry and Ernest Jones will form a solid duo at linebacker, and the secondary has taken the biggest step forward, adding L'Jarius Sneed and Quandre Diggs. Will Levis is just too much of a question mark right now. He has the tools to be good, but is still unproven as a QB. In 13th, I got the Raiders going 6-11. Antonio Pierce will be taking over at head coach for the whole season after the disastrous tenure with Josh McDaniels. Unfortunately, the Raiders brought in former Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy. Quarterback Gardner Minshew had a good stint with the Colts last year and nearly led them to the playoffs, but don't expect him to have that kind of success in Vegas. Josh Jacobs is long gone, but Zamir White had some solid games last year, and they brought in Alexander Madison. The receiving core is highlighted by Devontae Adams, and Jacoby Myers is a good wide receiver too, but their offensive line is average at best. The Raiders had a great draft on paper, bringing in generational tight end Brock Bowers and interior offensive lineman Jackson Powers Johnson. But between sharing snaps with Michael Mayer and being in a Luke Getsy offense, Bowers may not live up to that hype in year one. Defensively, Max Crosby is one of the best defenders in the league and will be joined by defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. But outside of those two, the rest of the Raiders' defense is concerning, especially their secondary. In 12th, I got the Steelers going 6-11. Mike Tomlin's streak of never having a losing season will come to an end this year, between having one of the league's hardest schedules and other teams in the AFC getting better in the offseason. They finally moved on from offensive coordinator Matt Canada halfway through last season, but they hired Arthur Smith, who isn't any better. They upgraded at QB from Kenny Pickett to Russell Wilson. George Pickens has unlimited upside as a wide receiver 1, and Pat Freiermuth is one of the better tight ends in the league. But if Arthur Smith has any say, Pickens and Freiermuth won't be getting the ball much. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren should be getting a heavier workload, and the offensive line will be interesting, as Broderick Jones had a good rookie year and should take another step forward, but Dan Moore Jr. was considered as the worst pass-blocking tackle in football last year. If that continues, then we should see what the Steelers can get out of Troy Fautanu. The Steelers will have one of the league's better defenses as long as they have TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, even though I'm not sure how many good years he has left, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. They added Patrick Queen to their linebacker core, but he has proven to be significantly better as an LB2 compared to an LB1. And in the secondary, Deshaun Elliott is good, Joey Porter Jr. will have a good year, but they definitely could have used a better corner next to JPJ. In 11th, I got the Browns going 8-9. The Browns had arguably the best defense last year, and should be just as good this year, and they were able to make the playoffs last year despite all the injuries. But in the limited time we saw Deshaun Watson play, it doesn't look like he will ever return to what he was in Houston, as he got outplayed by Joe Flacco after he took over. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore make a solid receiving core. Nick Chubb will be coming off a season-ending injury that saw him play in only one full game, but he is still one of the league's top running backs, and the O-line is still among the league's best. And of course, their defense will remain dominant. But the Browns' season will be completely dependent on how good Deshaun Watson is, and it doesn't help that they hired new offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey, who struggled with the Bills and saw them go 6-1 after he got fired. In 10th, I got the Bengals going 9-8. The Bengals had some injuries last year, but Joe Burrow is coming back, and they still have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They need a new wide receiver 3 because Tyler Boyd is no longer around, but Jermaine Burton and Andre Iosivas are capable of stepping into that role. Zach Moss had a good season with the Colts last year and will be replacing Joe Mixon, and they could get something out of second-year running back Chase Brown. Orlando Brown Jr. struggled at left tackle, but they did bring in Trent Brown and Amarius Mims. Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard are a good defensive end combination, but losing DJ Reader will hurt this defense a lot after allowing the most yards per play. Both Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt are returning at linebacker, and they brought in safety Geno Smith to a secondary that is not good at all, but second-year corner DJ Turner and rookie safety Jordan Battle could both be good. The Bengals are getting a lot of hype this year because of Burrow coming back healthy, but overall, they did get worse as a team. At 9th, I got the Jaguars going 9-8. The Jaguars were looking like a contender last year before Trevor Lawrence got hurt. But don't let that late-season collapse fool you. Trevor is still a top 10 quarterback in this league. The Jags' offense did get better this year, as they added Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. to the receiving core, not to mention Christian Kirk will be coming back healthy. They did lose Calvin Ridley, but he had drop issues. And the offensive line, which was terrible last year, brought in center Mitch Morse and are continuing to develop tackle Anton Harrison. The addition of Eric Armstead on defense is significant, plus they still have Josh Allen, who is now Josh Hines Allen, but they will need to continue developing the young guys like edge rusher Trayvon Walker and safety Andre Sisco. New defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen may be what they need. It wouldn't surprise me at all if the Jags won the division or made the wild card, but this is a make-or-break year for the Jags coaching staff, including Doug Peterson and especially offensive coordinator Press Taylor. At 8th, I got the Chargers going 10-7. I have mixed feelings about this Chargers team. Obviously, Justin Herbert is a clear-cut top 5 quarterback in the NFL, and they will be in the playoff race as long as he's under center. He's perfectly capable of leading this team to win the division, but I am not a fan of how the team around him is constructed. Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins are a solid running back tandem and are reuniting with offensive coordinator Greg Roman, but when your best receivers are Josh Palmer and DJ Chark, there is a cause for concern. They did draft Ladd McConkey, but the Chargers needed a deep threat, and McConkey is not that. As for Quentin Johnston, he had serious drop issues and didn't even show flashes of what he was at TCU. Their O-line should definitely be one of the better units, thanks to the new tackle duo of Rashawn Slater and Joe Walt, and a decent interior that's bringing in Bradley Bozeman. The Chargers' defense does have talent, like Khalil Mack, Derwin James, and Asante Samuel Jr., but this unit could never put it together and is always ranked near the bottom of the league. The most important thing is that Brandon Staley is long gone and is replaced by Jim Harbaugh, who gives the Chargers the best chance to compete, and has brought in Jesse Minter at DC. And now for the playoff teams. For the 7th seed, I got the Colts going 10-7. The Colts nearly made the playoffs last year, despite Anthony Richardson missing most of the year and Jonathan Taylor coming back from an ankle injury. AR-15 looked excellent in the 4 games he played, and had he finished the season, he probably would have won Offensive Rookie of the Year over C.J. Stroud. Offensive guru Shane Steichen will now have Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor on the field together for the first time, as well as a solid receiving core that features Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and second-round rookie Adonai Mitchell, as well as one of the best offensive lines in football. The defense is one of the weaker units, especially in the secondary outside of Kenny Moore, but they were able to get the best defender in the draft, edge rusher Leatu Latu, who could easily get double-digit sacks in year 1. The Colts are my sleeper team for this year, and it would not surprise me at all if they won the AFC South, or if Anthony Richardson enters the MVP conversation. In 6th, I got the Dolphins going 11-6. The Dolphins had the best offense in football last year, and I don't expect that to change. Tua Tagovailoa is a good game manager for this team. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are the best wide receiver duo in football, and the receiving room now features yards after catch threat Jonnu Smith at tight end. Second-year running back Devon Achane had a great rookie year before his knee injury, rushing for 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, and a whopping 8 yards per carry as RB2. Achane's role should get even bigger, even with Raheem Mostert returning. The offense's only real weakness is their O-line that lost Robert Hunt and Connor Williams, and we don't know how many good years Teron Armstead has left. The Dolphins' defense lost Christian Wilkins, which will definitely hurt a lot, and both Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are coming off season-ending injuries, but they did bring in Jordan Brooks at linebacker, and Miami's secondary is arguably the best in the NFL. Jalen Ramsey only played half of last season, but he looked like the best corner in the league. Javon Holland is arguably a top 5 safety, and they brought in veterans Kendall Fuller and Jordan Poyer, and hopefully Kader Kuhu bounces back after a sophomore slump. The Dolphins' defense should be better this year with a full season of Jalen Ramsey, as well as bringing in new defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver. In 5th, I got the Bills going 11-6. The Bills lost a lot of pieces this offseason, including Stephon Diggs. However, I do believe that people are overreacting on the Bills side of things, because Diggs was a non-factor in the second half of the season. I'm very high on Keon Coleman, and believe he will be one of the best rookies this year. Khalil Shakir had a very good season as a wide receiver free, and with Gabe Davis also gone, Shakir will have an even bigger role. Curtis Samuel is another solid weapon that will be reuniting with Joe Brady. Speaking with Joe Brady, the Bills won 6 of their last 7 games since he took over as offensive coordinator. And of course, you can't forget about the tight end tandem, Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. The O-line is a good unit that can still hold up without Mitch Morse. They still have Deion Dawkins. David Edwards and Connor McGovern are solid on the interior, but a name to keep out for this year is right guard Osiris Torrance, as I believe he will have a big year and emerge as their best lineman. They did lose a few players on defense, like Tre'Davious White and both their safeties, plus Matt Milano will be out indefinitely after missing most of last year, but Terrell Bernard was able to fill in nicely in Milano's absence, and I don't expect that to change. Von Miller is a shell of himself at this point in his career, but both pass rushers Gregory Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa and defensive tackle Ed Oliver all had good years and will continue getting better. Sean McDermott and defensive coordinator Bobby Babich will be able to get the most out of this unit, and the Bills will remain a playoff team as long as they have Josh Allen. In fourth, I got the Texans going 11-6. CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans completely turned the Texans around last year. Coming into this year, Stroud may have the best group of pass catchers in the NFL, adding Stephon Diggs to a receiving room that already features Nico Collins, tight end Dalton Schultz, and second-year wideout Tank Dell, who was on pace for 1,000 yards last year before his injury, and could easily be wide receiver 1 this year. Like I said, I do believe the Diggs trade is overhyped, but that does not mean he is washed. Plus, they added Joe Mixon to their run game. Laramie Tunsil is one of the best left tackles in the NFL, but the offensive line will need improvement from their young guys, like Juice Scruggs and especially Kenyon Green, who missed all of last year but was horrible as a rookie. And most of all, the Texans' offense is returning their OC, Bobby Slowick, and don't sleep on their defense. Will Anderson Jr. is coming off a Defensive Rookie of the Year season and could become one of the best edge rushers in the league this year. And they added Danielle Hunter, which could give them one of the league's best pass rush duos, and linebacker Azeez Al-Shahir. Derek Stingley missed half of last season, but he was really good when he was on the field. And this year, I believe he will take another step forward and become one of the top corners in football. In third, I got the Chiefs going 12-5. If there's one thing I learned from the Chiefs, it's that what they do in the regular season does not matter, because they did the unthinkable and won the Super Bowl without any quality pass catchers outside of Travis Kelce. The Chiefs added to their receiving room by signing Marquise Brown and drafting speedster Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice could still take another step forward after being the wide receiver 1 in their Super Bowl run last year. Travis Kelce is still one of the top tight ends, and the Chiefs still have one of the best offensive lines, which will now feature rookie Kingsley Suamataia starting at left tackle. But as we all know, it doesn't matter who's blocking for Mahomes or who he's throwing to, because he will dominate no matter what. Their Super Bowl run in February cemented Mahomes as an all-time great, and his GOAT case is only becoming stronger as time goes on. The Chiefs' defense will be missing star corner L'Jarius Sneed, but they will still be one of the top units, as long as Chris Jones and George Karlaftis are anchoring the front seven. Trent McDuffie will be taking on a bigger role with Sneed's absence, and Nick Bolton should finally emerge as one of the league's top linebackers after missing half of last season. If there's one thing I learned from watching football, it's not to bet against the Chiefs. In second, I got the Ravens going 13-4. A lot of people think the Ravens will regress due to losing some free agents and the departure of Mike McDonald, but I am not one of those people. Lamar Jackson is coming off his second MVP and now has Derrick Henry joining him in the backfield. Henry had a solid season despite the Titans having the worst O-line in the league, and now the Ravens have the potential to have the greatest run game in NFL history. The offensive line is still an okay unit despite losing 3 starters, as Tyler Linderbaum is growing into one of the best centers in the NFL. The receiving room should improve, with Zay Flowers building off a solid rookie season and Mark Andrews returning from injury. Mike McDonald may be gone, but the Ravens' defense is still one of the best in football. And new DC Zach Orr should be able to minimize the drop-off. They lost Patrick Queen and Geno Stone, but I don't think that will impact the team too much. They still have Roquan Smith and Justin Madubuike in the front seven, and they arguably have the best secondary in the NFL, bringing back Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Williams, and Kyle Hamilton, and bringing in rookie corner Nate Wiggins. And at 1, I got the Jets going 14-3. Aaron Rodgers only played 1 drive of football last year before tearing his Achilles, but the Jets went 7-10 with Zach Wilson at QB. I believe that Rodgers will pick up right where he left off. Coming into this year, the Jets added to their offensive line, which was terrible last year, bringing in Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, added Mike Williams and rookie Malachi Corley to the receiving room, and Hassan Reddick to their pass rush. This may end up being the best roster in football, as well as the best roster Rodgers has ever played with. Breece Hall is one of the league's top running backs, and rookie Braylon Allen has the tools to be a great RB2. Garrett Wilson had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, despite Zach Wilson throwing him the ball. The interior offensive line is still not the greatest, but they still have Elijah Vera-Tucker, and they could get something out of second-year center Joe Tippmann. And the Jets have a top-5 defense, anchored by Quinnen Williams on the D-line, Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed in the secondary, and Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley at linebacker. Aaron Rodgers still has a lot of football left in him, and if he comes back to even half of what he was in Green Bay, the Jets will no doubt be contending for a Super Bowl. That's all for today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications.